you can save money on your winter heating bills without sitting around your house looking like this.
Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median. All month long on this channel, we are going to be helping you tackle the areas of your budget which have been adversely affected by the sharp rise in the cost of inflation. Now, today we're talking winter heating bills. Exactly a week ago, we dropped a video. We talked about inflation and we showed that natural gas has risen 50% in 2021 and expected to continue to rise in 2022. And oh boy, did we hear from a lot of you. We heard from viewers in the US, Canada, Italy, the UK, not to mention Sweden. And y'all said pretty much the same thing, that indeed the cost of natural gas and electricity both soaring out of control. Here's an idea of some of the things we heard from. We heard from Rachel that said her natural gas bill, quite a surprise to her last month. NT, who knows his numbers, said that he did everything in his power to actually lower his usage, which he successfully did. But even though he lowered his usage, his overall bill still went up over 20%.
Laura from Maine says that her electricity costs have gone up a staggering 89%.
Holy moly. Carlotta's from Italy, and she said, get this, gas and electric and the water bill all going up, each of them 50% in January.
And that seems to be the consensus for most. 50% is about the average they're going up.
Absolutely.
So we've got some tips here that we want to share with you as to how you can compensate for the rising costs.
All right, let's get started. Bundle up is our first tip. Now, I know that this seems like, okay, based on our open, we're going to tell you to put on your hat and your coat and your mittens. We're not saying that, but we are saying do things like wear long underwear, long pants, heavy socks, shoes. For one of us, the shoe thing is a real issue in this house. Yeah, I'm not a real fan of shoes, but I am now because they're keeping my feet warm.
You know, I actually bought her a pair of electrically heated socks for Christmas a couple years ago.
I was so excited.
Yeah,
I love them.
Just
I love
to
my
help
heated
her.
socks.
She has cold feet.
All right, long sleeves, a sweater in the house. You get the idea. Dress in layers. It makes absolute sense, and it does help to keep that warmth next to your core. Keep your core warm, and your body will stay warm.
The next thing you can do is lower your thermostat. For each degree that you lower your thermostat, you'll save 1 to 3% on your heating bill.
We've done this for a year, and our average savings per degree that we lower it has been between 1 and 2%, just so you know in practical application how it's worked out for us. Number 3, program that smart thermostat. Now, a lot of us have upgraded from the old thermostats that you turned when you were kids.
I liked those.
I know. They were simple, right? They worked great. They were absolutely simple. But a lot of us, the new electronic thermostats, and here's the deal. You can put them in and they will save you money, but not if you don't program them. You got to program them to save the money. Now, if you do that, it's an estimated 10 to 12% savings on your final bill at the end of the month. They're compatible to smart thermostats, compatible with Amazon's Echo.
Alexa, lower the thermostat by 4 degrees.
Not 40 degrees, 4 degrees, Alexa, 4 degrees. All right. Lower your thermostat at night. Ours is set 4 degrees, not 40, 4 degrees lower by the time we go to bed. If everyone's gone during the day, go ahead, lower that thermostat, and then make sure that you program it to raise about 30, 45 minutes before you walk in the door. You'll never know the difference. It'll be toasty warm by the time you walk in the house.
Yeah, and some smart thermostats actually learn your patterns and compensate for those.
Which we find really interesting, but at the same time slightly creepy that your thermostat can do that. But sure enough, they will. Number 4. And once again, this is one of those that seems like you would automatically do this, but take it from us. We have not done this a time or two, and that's why we're telling you to do it. And that is make sure your windows are closed.
You know, they can appear closed, but not be fully sealed. If your windows are closed, but they're not latched, chances are there's probably a little gap in there where some cold air is coming in. You want to make sure your windows are latched. They're all the way up or all the way down, whichever is the case. Make sure your door is the same. Make sure it's latched.
We have a couple of doors in this house that are just notorious for looking like they are closed, but if you pull on them just even a little bit, they come right open and they are not actually closed.
You want to seal leaks and cracks. And we do this quite a bit with a simple little clay material called Mortite. It comes in a roll. It's kind of a string. It's about a 1/4 inch thick. And you can just push that into all the cracks that are in your windows. I wouldn't use it on doors. We just use this on windows. And it's kind of like a caulking material. Does a great job. It doesn't stain. It doesn't hurt your windows at all. You just pull it off in the spring when you want to open your house back up and then reapply in the fall.
It does not peel off paint, making it a great product that can be used even if you rent. You can use Mortite. Other than that, anything you can shove in those cracks and crevices that you can find that will seal those gaps, you sure can use that.
One of the ways that you know whether you have a leak or not, especially if it's a little breezy outside, you can take a candle and hold it up near your window. And if the flame is blowing around, then you know you're getting a draft in the window. That's the simple way. Really, I can just take my hands and hold them up to the window. And if I'm feeling cold coming in, I know for sure that window is not sealing.
They also sell plastic window kits that are designed specifically to seal windows. They do work. They're not terribly expensive. You don't want to put out the money for those. Find yourself a way that you can get some bubble wrap and see if you can get it for free from people. Take the bubble wrap, cut it to the size of the window, put a thin layer of water on the window, push the bubble wrap up against that film of water, and that film of water will actually hold the bubble wrap up against the window, giving you an extra layer of insulation in that window.
One of the things we did on our garage door window, and that it has a jalousie window. That's the kind you crank and they open up like louvers. Well, they don't seal very well. And the original owner of the house lost the storm window, so we didn't have one. So we had a plexiglass sheet made that now fits in there and seals that up nicely. The next item that you want to take into consideration are your outside doors. Make sure those are sealed. And I like the aluminum fitted pieces that fit in as a weather stripping. It has a rubber boot on the top that meets the bottom of the door, seals it up very nicely. They last for years. They're probably the best way to weatherproof those doors. There's all kinds of products you can buy as an add-on to the bottom of the door that will seal that door up. You can take a little search on Amazon and find all kinds of things. The main thing is get it sealed up so it's not leaking and you're not wasting your heat that you have in your house.
Another thing you can use are something called draft dodgers. At least that's one name for them. Basically, it's a long tube that has sand or perhaps beans or rice or something like that sealed inside of it to give it a little bit of weight. You lay it just up against the bottom of that door. The weight will cause it to stay there, and it will cause it so that the drafts don't get into your house. This is great to use in the evening when everybody's gone to bed. Nobody's going to be coming in or out of that door, and it will seal up the bottom of that door so no cold air gets through in the middle of the night.
And they're made of cloth and they fit up there really nicely. You can actually purchase one on Amazon. We found one for less than $20 that would work very well. Another thing you can do in a pinch is just take a towel, roll up a towel, put it up underneath that door, or you can even use a blanket.
Anything that is going to seal that and give that layer of protection, you can use that. Anything we talk about on the program that is a product, look in the description of the video. It'll say recommended products from this video, and we'll leave a link there for you so you can access those really easily. The next thing that you might want to do is insulate behind outlets. This is something I was unfamiliar with. Larry had heard of it, but I was unfamiliar with it until one of the viewers brought it to our attention.
Any of your outlets that are along your outside wall are generally not insulated because they have to cut a hole out in order to put that electrical box in that houses the outlet. And there's insulation around that, but not right at that outlet. So there are products you can buy. They're a styrofoam product that you can put in there that will insulate your outlet and keep air from coming in through those.
Now, despite the fact that you use that product, you may still be feeling a draft through those outlets. And the reason for that is because you're having a cold air that is actually traveling up through the wall, and it's being pulled up from your basement level up toward the top of your home. And that actually is called something called the stack effect. Now, one of the ways to avoid that is actually by our next tip, which is to insulate the rim joist. Your rim joists of your home are the area right up at the top of the wall of your basement where the ceiling of your basement meets the floor of the next story of your home. Those areas are the rim joists, and that's actually a really common area for cold air to get into your home. So by insulating those with foam insulation, you will solve that problem.
And you have those up in your attic too. If you have an attic on your house, you'll also have an area there right along the edge of the roof line where the roof line meets the floor of the attic. Those you want to do some extra insulating, and that will help keep that drafting out. Another thing that we discovered in our house, because we have it's a ceiling fan. It's a whole house fan mounted in the roof or the ceiling of the hallway on our first floor. That was just simply an aluminum housing with louvers that air could easily escape from. So we were losing our warm air in the wintertime to our attic, which is vented to the outside. So we found a product that actually it's like a door. It's an insulated cover that fits over that. It's held on by magnets, and it's insulated with styrofoam, and that prevents the air from going through those louvers.
One thing you need to do is go through your home and figure out where are the openings. That's a natural opening where that ceiling fan is in the hall, the whole house fan. That's a natural opening. You have a natural opening. If you have an exhaust fan in your bathroom that is vented to the attic, that's a natural opening. If you have a vent on your stove, that's an opening that goes up through the roof and is vented to the outside. Now, in the case of the vent to your stove, you can actually go ahead and insulate that vent that goes up through the attic and vents out of your roof. You can wrap that in insulation, and that actually will help keep that area a little bit warmer.
Another item, and this involves windows, would be having curtains over your windows. Now, we have what do you call it, a valance that's over our window in the basement?
Yeah, just covers the top part. It looks pretty.
It looks pretty, but we have a couch that sits underneath that, and boy, was it cold.
It doesn't stop cold air at all.
We were getting quite a draft coming in on that. And a couple of weeks ago, Hope hung a nice kind of a floor-to-ceiling heavy cloth drape over that, and by golly, it's comfortable to sit there now. Made quite a difference.
Huge difference. If you don't have an extra drape hanging around like I did, that's like a joke. If you don't have one available, then you can use a blanket. You can use a quilt. You can use anything that you can hang off of that curtain. Now, the caveat is make certain that what you're hanging is not so heavy it's going to pull that curtain rod down. So do a little test, kind of hold on to it and see if it's going to put too much pressure on there. But anything you can hang in front of that window that is going to give you that extra layer of insulation, that's gold to help keep the cold air out.
You'll also want to close off unused rooms. And once again, like as we were talking about your front or rear doors in your house, your outside doors, you'll want to make sure that's sealed off. So you might want to put a draft dodger at the bottom of that, make sure it's sealed off. Make sure vents are shut off to that room that you're not using, so you're not wasting your heat out of your furnace.
Right. So the cold air that is behind the door in that unused room, you want to block it so that cold air doesn't slide through the bottom of that door and come out into the rest of your home. So that's why you want to seal the bottom of that door with a draft dodger.
Another item that I would not have really thought much about is take a look at your furniture and the placement, and you might want to move some things around. If you have a couch or a chair that's on an outside wall and maybe right next to a window, you might want to move that around across to the other side of the room that doesn't have windows, so you're not sitting right where you might be exposed to some drafting from the air coming in from the outside.
Now, when you're moving that furniture around, though, you do want to make sure you're not placing it directly in front of the hot air vents that go into that room. A general rule of thumb is 3 feet from a hot air vent. If you got small rooms, sometimes that's just not possible. So our advice, just make sure you're not putting it right in front of that hot air vent, and you'll probably be okay.
And you want to make sure you're not blocking a cold air return. You want your furnace to be able to circulate the air freely.
One of the things you might want to do that seems really weirdly counterproductive when it comes to heating, and that is use your ceiling fans. Now, hot air rises, so theoretically, there's more hot air towards your ceiling than there is down in the area where you are actually sitting. That's colder air. So if you turn your ceiling fan on the lowest setting possible and turn the blades clockwise instead of counterclockwise, the clockwise movement will actually pull that warm air down from the ceiling and bring it down toward where you are actually sitting in the room and make you feel far more comfortable.
Yeah, and with it on the low setting, it won't be blowing a lot of air on you. The next item is you want to make sure that your furnace filters are changed regularly. Now, different types of filters have to be changed at different times. So if you've got maybe an inexpensive filter, that might have to be changed every 30 days. A more expensive filter, some of those can go as long as 6 months. If you're not sure, inspect your filter. If it's all covered up with dust, your furnace is not breathing and the air is actually not flowing into the furnace freely because of that filter, and that's costing you money.
So if you feel like your furnace is just cycling over and over and over and over and over again, one of the first places you might want to look is at that furnace filter to see if it needs to be changed. Because if you change it out, you may find that your furnace doesn't have to work as hard and it's not cycling on and off nearly as often.
Another item that you can use in your home is a space heater. If you want to just warm a particular room that you're sitting in, these are a great way to do it.
Now, we keep our thermostat set at 65 degrees during the day. And even during the middle of the day, 65 degrees isn't necessarily super comfortable to sit in. We would love to know in the comments section, what do you keep your thermostat set to during the day, and what do you lower it to in the evening when you are sleeping? So one of the ways that we actually combat sitting in an area of the home, especially like our family room, and feeling just downright chilly is by using space heaters. We have 2 of them that we really like. We like them both for different reasons. We're going to tell you about them now.
Yeah, the first one is a much smaller unit. So it's a little less than a foot high. It's called a Paris Rhone. This company sent this heater to us for us to try out, and we really do like it. It has 3 different fan and power settings. The first setting is high, and it runs at about 1500 watts. On the low setting, it'll run on 900 watts. And the third setting is a fan setting. It just simply acts as a fan. So you can use this in the summertime if you want to, just to kind of put a little breeze into the room. It also oscillates, which is going to distribute the heat very nicely throughout the room. And then it has a temperature setting. So you can actually set it like a thermostat, and it'll actually go up to 95 degrees. So it has plus and minus buttons in order to adjust that. And you can set it to Fahrenheit or centigrade. And this one has a memory on it so that as long as you leave it plugged in, it will remember the settings that you last had in the heater. Then it has a timer function. So this will shut the unit off as soon as an hour, or I think it probably goes up to about 8 hours, but you can have a different increments of time for it to automatically run. So this is a very good unit. Our son uses it in his bedroom because his is a very cold room, and he really appreciates having that.
Now, one of the ways that we use heaters in the bedroom is that we turn the heaters on about 30 minutes before we head to bed and sort of superheat the room, if you will. And then we turn the heaters off, get under the covers, and that room will actually stay warm for a number of hours before it slowly cools down. But by the time that room's cooled down, you are asleep long before that happens. And that's been super helpful in helping us to actually go to sleep without feeling like we are chilly. And with any heater situation, we just want to remind you, safety protocol, 3 feet in any direction of that heater. You shouldn't have anything within 3 feet of it. And we do not recommend using the heaters overnight.
No, and these do have a lot of different protections built in. They'll shut down if they get warmer than 120 degrees Fahrenheit. If they're tipped over, they automatically shut off. Once again, they're very well built, very well made.
We have a second space heater that we also use and we really like.
Yeah, this one's made by Tautronics. It's a tall unit. Once again, it has different settings for it. It has a high setting that uses about 1,400 watts and a low setting that draws about 850 watts. You can set a timer function so it can run an hour to 8 hours and then it automatically shuts off. It has a thermostat built into it so you can actually dial in the temperature that you want your room to be. It oscillates and it also memorizes the settings. And this one comes with a remote control so you can run it from across the room. And thanks to Tautronics for sending us this heater to try out.
Now, Larry, how do you know? So you've mentioned like how much energy each of these things uses. How do you know how much energy they're consuming? And this is, by the way, our next tip.
Well, you can look on the product and generally it will say probably on the back or the underneath side, generally how much wattage it uses, but that's not an exact amount. If you want to know exactly how much it's using, this is a product that's called a Kilowatt Meter. It's a model P3. And this meter will tell you precisely how much wattage any electric device is using. You simply plug it into the wall, plug your device in here, and you can tell the amperage, the wattage, and the kilowatt hours over time with this button. So it is an exact measurement, and I use this for just about everything we have in the house, so we know how much energy it's consuming.
Now, even though he just told you all it does is measure the amount of energy consumed, how does that help us save? Because we consistently use this kilowatt meter to help us determine which appliances we're going to use and which ones we are not going to use or we're going to use less often. It really helps us to prioritize where we're going to put our energy dollars and what we're going to use those dollars on.
Mm-hmm. The next item that we've recently come into contact with is the use of electric blankets. Now, oftentimes you think of an electric blanket as something you just want to put on your bed at night and warm your bed with. But we have found them to be very nice for just putting around us when we're watching TV in the family room and we don't want to use any of our space heaters.
Especially if the kids aren't in the room with us, it's actually far less expensive to use a couple of heating blankets than it is to turn on one of those heaters. These electric blankets don't suck a lot of energy. I know that's a common misconception that some of you have talked about in the comments section recently, that I'd love to use an electric blanket, but it really uses a lot of energy. We've not found that to be the case. We're going to tell you about these electric blankets and how much energy we have found that they consume.
Well, the first electric blanket was a full-size blanket that Tautronics sent us to try out. And I loved it so much that I ordered a throw blanket, that's a little smaller one, for Hope. And that was her Christmas gift this year.
From Larry and the boys. I love my gift. I use it like every day, literally.
So she has a way now to keep warm. So the electric blanket draws about 100 watts, but it's not drawing 100 watts all the time. There are different heat settings on the blanket. There's actually 10 different ones. It goes from high down to 1. And I find overnight that 1 or 2 is warm enough in a room that's, say, well, 61 degrees, that will actually keep us warm. So it's really not using a lot of power because it cycles on and off. It's not using a constant 100 watts of power. It also has a timer setting on them. The throw blanket has a 3-hour timer. It only goes up to 3 hours, but the main blanket will actually go all the way up to 12 hours, the bigger one. So I just find these to be really nice. They're made of a real soft plush material, real comfortable. I can't say enough good things about this blanket. We are very happy with both of them.
Now, we were so happy with the heater and the blankets that Tautronics did something amazing for you guys. They sent you a special coupon code. There'll be a link to that code in the description of this video. You'll save 35% 25% off your order of $30 or more. That coupon code is good through February the 10th, so make sure you give it a look and use it. Thanks, Teltronics. There are other ways that you can keep warm other than using space heaters or using electric blankets.
Yeah, the first one is probably the oldest way of heating that there is, and that's the old-fashioned fireplace. But a fireplace is not very efficient. I believe they're only about 30% efficient, if they're that. Most of your heat is going up and out of the chimney, and just a little bit of it is really getting into the room.
But they look so pretty.
Yeah, they are pretty.
All right. So if you're not going to use a fireplace or you don't have one, you can use wood-burning stoves. Natural gas wall heaters are actually very efficient and warm spaces very, very well. And kerosene heaters, we have 3 kerosene heaters. We love our kerosene heaters. As safety considerations, you need to make sure that you have enough ventilation when you use a kerosene heater, but we've had absolutely no problems with that.
No, we've used them for years.
This next one is a little bit controversial. Humidifiers. Now, when I did the research for this program, most of the things that I research, we actually do or have done in the past. This is not one of them. Tell us what you think about this tip in the comments section. Turn your humidifier on, because a humidifier will put moisture into the air, causing the air to feel warmer, and thus you can lower your thermostat without any loss of comfort. What do you think, guys? This next tip we actually have done, and we did it just probably a couple of years after we bought the house, maybe a little more than that. The house is 1958, and the insulation in the attic was 1958 insulation.
It was.
We don't know how thick it started out, guys, but by the time we looked at it in the attic, it was maybe about that thick, and the R value it was providing was, I think, a 10 or 15. So virtually, it was doing nothing.
Yeah. So we had the attic insulated, brought it up to code, and it's what's it at an R value now? About 49? 49 R value. And one of the ways you know that your attic is insulated is the snow on top will not melt. So that's one indicator. You can go around your neighborhood and, oh, look at there. They don't have insulation because they have no snow on top of their house. But that's a very important place. You do not want to be losing your heat that you're running from your furnace out the top of your house. This is another item that sounds a little bit opposite of the information that we gave you just a bit ago, but you want to open your drapes. Now, when do you want to open your drapes, Hope?
You want to open your drapes on a very sunny day when the sunlight is coming directly into that window. And that means that you're going to have a southern-facing window, at least here in North America. That would be a southern-facing window, right? Otherwise, you're sort of wasting your time just adding a little bit of light to the room, but you're not adding any heat to the room if you're doing it on windows that face a different side of your home. We have large overhangs on this house. We have a huge front porch. So really for us, this tip is not applicable, but those of you who have a home with a lot of southern facing windows, give it a try. Open it when there's at least a little bit of warmth and light coming, even though it's the middle of winter, coming in those windows. But as soon as that sun starts to go down, you need to close those drapes again.
Next item of consideration is that you want to lower the temperature of your hot water heater.
Here's something that most people don't understand, and that is that about 20% of your monthly utility bill is just spent on warming water. That's at least how much, sometimes even more, that your hot water heater is consuming the energy in your home and raising your, not only your water bill, but also raising your utility bill. Now, hot water heaters, the standard setting them on is 140 degrees, but we want to suggest that they turn it down to...
Well, 120 degrees is good. Now, I don't really put a thermometer on the hot water. My test is I set it to where it's just a little bit higher than comfortable for taking a shower in all hot water. That way it's not going to be scalding and you're not wasting a lot of energy heating your water. Another thing that I do to save your hot water is when you're bringing your hot water into a faucet that's maybe all the way across the house from your hot water heater, instead of just letting that water go down the drain, let that water fill up a vessel, maybe a coffee pot or something maybe you're going to cook on the stove. Fill up that pot using just the hot water, and that way you're drawing that water up to the faucet, then you can use it for like washing dishes without wasting any.
Now, if you feel like you don't want to drink the water because it has been drawn from your hot water heater, there are some safety considerations with that for some people. If you feel like you don't want to do that, then go ahead, draw the water off, keep it in something, use it for watering plants, use it for flushing the toilet, use it for doing dishes, like Larry said. If you're not going to drink it, go ahead and use it, because otherwise you're literally just flushing your money down the drain and allowing it to float down the drain while you're waiting for that water to heat up.
Another thing you can do to help out the hot water heater a little bit so it doesn't run too much is get a blanket. You can get a hot water blanket that it's made of either styrofoam or fiberglass. It literally wraps that, and that insulates it and holds that heat energy longer. You can actually save about 9% by doing that.
Now, an insulated hot water blanket, by the way, in case you want to know, will cost you less than $50, and you will save an average of $4 a month by doing that, which means within 12 months, you will have paid yourself back for that insulated hot water cover.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something else you may want to wrap along with your hot water heater, and that is your hot water pipes.
Yes, by insulating your hot water pipes, you're actually going to retain the heat that's delivered from your hot water heater, and that can be a difference of 2 to 4 degrees warmer by wrapping those up. So that is going to be a more efficient way to transport that water from the heater to your faucet.
And an extra bonus to that tip is the fact that you won't have to wait as long for the hot water to actually reach your shower head or your bath or where you're doing dishes in your sink.
Mm-hmm.
So how much can you hope to save on your utility bills if you do all 25 of these tips? And the truth is, we don't know. We know that scientifically and statistically, doing these things will lower your usage and hopefully thus your utility bills. What we're trying to do all month long on this channel is to give you lots and lots and lots of tips and strategies in all the major areas of your budget that have been affected from inflation in both 2021 and price hikes and inflation that are expected to happen in 2022. So hopefully what we're doing will allow you to offset a lot of those costs and hopefully to actually lower your bills at the end of the month. We do have a free, handy home energy checklist that you can request. There'll be a link to it in the description of the video. I walk you through your house room by room and give you great, no or very, very low cost ways that you can save on your home energy costs. Once again, a link to that free resource in the description of the video. If you want to know how this whole January series started on Under the Median, there's a link to last Monday's video right over there. We talk about inflation, what it did in 2021, what it's expected to do in 2022, and we give you our best recommendations on how you can fight inflation.